both Donnie and Jimmy led us yesterday. Donnie did the budget, told us where we stand as far as that's concerned. Then Jimmy led us with some thoughts, some devotional thoughts about faith, and particularly using the example of Job.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty apt metaphor for what has been going on with us this year. And granted, 2020, it's not been the same as what Job experienced with, hey, your family's dead. Hey, all your stuff's gone. Hey, everything's going like that. But for a lot of people on a smaller scale, we've had that kind of experience where one thing happens, then another thing happens, and then another thing after that happens. So as far as decades go, like starting out a decade, it's kind of been a sour note so far.
Yeah, it feels like it's just been a snowball effect, one thing after the next.
Yeah.
And it's kind of become a theme for this year, like it's 2020.
Right.
And it's interesting because when you go back to 2019 and you look at all of the information out there that was looking forward to 2020, it was supposed to be a visionary type year, and
right.
Things were going to become clear in 2020, and it's kind of had a different effect on.
But Job is a really apt metaphor because everything was going great in his life.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And then basically Satan gets permission from God to test Job.
Yeah.
Except just don't kill him.
Yeah.
Take away all of this stuff. And what stands out to me in that story, I think most of all that we can take away from that, obviously is his faithfulness and perseverance, but his friends that come up and talk to him.
Yeah.
After everything's happened to him, he's kind of wallowing in misery, trying to figure this out. Most of his friends come up, and instead of giving him like wise counsel or a soothing ointment for his maladies, they end up basically asking, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
like what did you do that was so bad that God hates you so much?
Yeah.
And I just feel, especially with social media, I think it's not social media's fault, it's really our fault, but social media has just exposed it and it's kind of increased it. But we as human beings have a tendency when things are going wrong, our natural response is to just rub it in the dirt more. You know what I mean? What's wrong with us? What's wrong with the situation? My life is so awful. And I feel like most of the response, at least initially, was all of that.
Yeah.
It was all just Job's friends sitting around him saying, "What have we done so wrong?" or "What have you done wrong?" What kind of friend do you want to be during these times? Because the majority of people I've talked to, at least with church circles, have all said they've been super discouraged. And I don't think it's a local thing or anything. It's probably just a worldwide thing that church leaders have been discouraged. And that's going to come no matter what, but especially in this time, there's criticism from every side on everything you do all the time, now more than I've ever experienced. And I think it's up to us, every single one of us, to choose what kind of friend we're going to be. We can choose to be the one who is discouraging and God must be punishing you, or you're not doing this the right way, or we could choose to be the one to say, maybe we don't know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Maybe God's bigger than all of this, and we need to just be patient, keep our mouth shut until He gives us something else that we can move forward with.
Yeah, and just back to Jimmy's lesson and your point too, instead of pointing the finger and blaming each other, which is the easy route.
Yeah.
And again, this is on a global scale. I don't think this is localized. But working together.
Yeah.
Finding ways where we can fit in, where we can do more, where we can participate and join in helping the community here at Center Chapel. We are a community of believers who, I think you could argue this, now more than ever, we need each other. We need to be supporting one another.
Yeah.
And it's a good opportunity for us working together. So it's really telling for us, I think, when we face challenges like this, that we need to see them as opportunities.
Yeah.
Not as,
right.
I think you even said it one time, it's not that God has left us or departed from us, but God is always near. He's always present. He's our help in time of need. So we shouldn't be viewing 2020 as God disciplining us and or He's mad at us and angry with us. It could be God strengthening us. God is working together all things for individuals' goods and collectively too. He wants the best for us.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we see in the book of Job.
You know, a lot of the best businesses are actually formed and molded, made better in hard times, economic depressions, things like that. I think the same is true for churches. At this time, we can use this opportunity to make ourselves better, strengthen our own bonds, make our facilities better, whatever. We can do all those things right now. We can come out of this situation better than before, or we can wallow, we can waste our time, we can point fingers, and end up being a lot worse off than we were before this whole thing happened.
Yeah, and it seems to be a Bible thing. When things seem dark and there's despair out there and people are downcast and downtrodden, what does God do? Well, that's when he does his best work. And I think this past weekend for our membership was a great example of different people filling different roles and stepping up to the plate and doing things that even were uncomfortable or stretched them or were challenging. Everyone seemed to step up this past weekend, and I feel like a lot of good was done this past weekend. So
I think the biggest thing for Job overall, the lesson we get from it, is even if you do come on all this misfortune, at the end especially, if you're a faithful Christian, then you're going to win anyway.
Yeah.
The worst case scenario is you die.
Yeah.
It's the worst case scenario. And if you're a faithful Christian through the resurrection of Christ, we're going to win.
Yeah.
He's going to come back and take us. So even if 2020 takes us and we just fall victim to 2020, overall God's got us.
Yeah.
Let's work and act like that's true and not shirk back in fear, and respect people and respect guidelines we put out, but not be absolutely paralyzed and lead us to believe that God's not behind us anymore. He's there every step of the way.
Can I read James 5?
Please read James 5.
I will read James 5. Therefore, be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. My brethren, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord as an example of suffering and patience. Indeed, we count them blessed who endure. You have heard of the perseverance of Job and seen the end intended by the Lord, that the Lord is very compassionate and merciful. So he uses that end part to discuss the coming of the Lord.
Yeah.
Our only job is to be patient, be content, persevere through times of hardship and suffering.
Right.
Don't give up. Don't grumble and complain towards one another, but do the work of the church. Do what the Lord has asked you to do. Work with him. Work together. And I really appreciated that end part in Jimmy's lesson.
I think a lot of us are going to look back at 2020 and say, boy, that was rough. But man, we are so much better for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how everything works in our lives. It's really rough in that time, but in hindsight, it's usually a blessing.
Yeah.
It's usually a blessing in disguise.